And he got very upset with me for asking these questions. He got very upset with me. He started to insult me, called me some names. He told me, I know people way smarter than you. I've debated people who are way smarter, more intelligent, and schooled than you. Who's debating? I wasn't even debating, for one thing. I told him, I said, what does my intelligence have to do with what I'm reading in the Bible? What does you knowing other people who know more than me have anything to do with what we're talking about in this book? You see, what they'll do is they will try to beat around the bush and try to subvert your attention away from the main issue at hand. And that's something we're going to learn about also when it comes to talking to people about this book, because you have to be careful about that, because I used to get sucked into that a lot. You'll start on a subject and somehow you end up way in left field talking about things that have nothing to do with the original point. You may have made an excellent point, and you have to get them to admit first before you move on to anything else. I don't care if you're talking to an atheist. I made atheists sweat because I won't let them jump from here all the way over there and try to point all the faults out with the Bible. When, hold on, let's point out the faults let's talk about with what you actually believe. Don't try to sit here and comb through my book. You see what I'm saying? Don't try to comb through my book and try to tell me that, well, I don't think this is right. I don't agree with that. I don't think this is real. No, let's talk about what you believe, and let's see what you believe is real. You see? Well, I don't really believe that Bible. I don't believe the Bible. You can't use the Bible. I'm an atheist. You can't use that book. Period. Okay? Why can't I use this book? This is the specimen called into question. I have to use this book. You called this book into question. Is this book factual or not? So let's open this book up and examine and see if this book is truth. You can't take the specimen away. That's like saying, I don't believe the PS4 is better than the Xbox One. Okay, let me turn on my PS4. No. You can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? No. I don't believe it's better than the PS4. So I just don't believe you can't use the PS4 to try to show me it's better. Of course I can. That's the specimen called into question. I'm going to take the PS4, I'm going to turn it on. We're going to check the graphics, check all its capabilities. We're going to look at the specs and see if this is actually better than the Xbox One. Period. That's what we got to do. So it's the same thing. You can't tell me I can't use the Bible to prove the Bible. What sense does that make? You see, and this is kind of like the same thing what this brother was doing with me when it came to this discussion on the 144,000. I asked a few questions. He didn't want to answer them. He got angry and upset at me. Started calling me names, try to take me away from the original points that we're discussing. The conversation didn't end very well, and he's no longer a friend. I still love him. I still care about him. He was a good guy. But, man, when you know what this book says, that's just what it is. Nobody can refute it. Nobody can refute it. I don't care, like I said, I don't care what you believe. Don't try to tell me something about this book that I know when I know what it says, and try to tell me something different, whether it's the blood issue, whether it's politics, whether it's joining the military, whatever it may be, whether it's life after death. That's another one. Now, we're definitely going to do a discussion on that because it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, the lies that people will tell, and how these other witnesses will try to stick up for this building and what they represent when they know that they can't refute this stuff. They know the book don't say that, and some of them don't know. Some of them don't know. They just trust and believe, and it's crazy. It's ridiculous. But let's look and see. We're getting off topic here. Okay, so we're going to go to John chapter 9, verse 18 to 22, and we're going to see again how this is not a new concept as far as being afraid to speak up about what we know to be true, what we can clearly read, what our own intelligent eyes tell us. Mark chapter 9, verse 18 through 22 says this. But the Jews did not believe concerning him that he had been blind, and received his sight until they called the parents of him that had received his sight. Now what's going on here? This is after Jesus had healed this man who was born blind. Okay? This man was born blind, never seen a day in his life. Jesus healed him. It was a miracle. And the Jews, but they did not believe, right? What did it say? It says that they did not believe that he was blind, that he really was blind all this time. They think something's fishy going on. So they said they're not going to believe until they call the parents of this young man over and ask the parents, has your son really been blind all this time? Is he really blind? Let's see what happens. Let's go on verse 19. And they asked them, saying, is this your son, who ye say was born blind? How then doth he now see? So they're saying that to the parents, is this your son? Is this really your son? He's really been born blind. If he's been born blind, then how is it possible that he sees now? Because I ain't never seen nothing like that. How is that possible? Verse 20. His parents answered them and said, we know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But by what means we now seeth, we know not. For who hath opened his eyes, we know not. They're lying. They know that their son was born blind, but they're lying. They're lying to the Jews. They're lying to the Pharisees. Why are they lying? What is there to lie about? Why are they lying? They knew how their son got healed, how he was able to see again. They knew. But why won't they be honest? Let's see. In fact, in verse 20, they said, his parents answered them and said, we know that this is our son, and that he was born blind, right? They mentioned that. Verse 21, but by what means he now seeth, we know not, or who hath opened his eyes, we know not. He is of age. Ask him. He shall speak for himself. So they're putting it on him. Go ask him. We don't know. Ask him. Why? Why are they doing this? Verse 22. These words spake his parents because they feared the Jews. For the Jews had agreed already that if any man did confess that he was Christ, he should be put out of the synagogue. Wow. Let me say that again. The Jews had already agreed that if any man said that this was the Christ, that was the Christ that did this, that did anything, if they speak about Christ, what did it say? He should be put out of the synagogue. Doesn't that sound familiar? When you know that the teachings of the Jehovah's Witnesses is not in harmony with what the Bible teaches, why do many people still sit there and sulk and just stay quiet and complain, but they don't speak up, they don't say anything about it? Why? Because they're afraid that the elders are going to put them out of the kingdom hall, out of the church, out of the congregation, right? This is what they're afraid of. Just like these parents here. Think about it. These parents, their child was born blind. You know how tragic that is? That is tragic. My son, when my wife was pregnant with my son, I was worried, you know. I never had a child before. I never had a kid before. So I'm reading all these articles that, you know, things could go wrong during the pregnancy. You know, I'm nervous, right? Because I want to have a happy, healthy baby, you know. And thank God my son was born, and he was born a happy, healthy baby. But I feel for those who have children that had birth defects. Some of you may have had children that have birth defects, or know of someone who's given birth to someone with a child with birth defects. It's tragic. And so I can only imagine how that must be. So just think about it. These parents, their child was born blind. He never seen daylight before. He could never see. That means his parents had to care for him. They had to teach him how to navigate through the world as a blind person. They had to do things for him. They had to inconvenience themselves, right? But now, this young man can see. He's no longer blind. How joyous that must have been. The parents would want to tell everybody. No. Why? Why did they not want to tell the Jews, specifically the Pharisees? Because they were afraid that they would get kicked out, put out of the synagogue. So they stayed quiet. Just like today, many witnesses, and again, it can be people in the Catholic Church, they practice, excommunication as well, just not on a larger scale, a broad scale like the Jehovah's Witnesses. It can be anything. The Scientologists, it can be anything. You realize something is wrong, they're not teaching the right thing, but you're afraid to speak up and say anything. You're afraid to even just anything because you don't want to be put out. You are bamboozled by a building. You associate the building with salvation, the building, the congregation. What do they always say? Come back to Jehovah. By saying that, they're meaning come back to the meetings. Go to the meetings. Go out in field service. Everything this thing represents. Come to the Kingdom Hall. They're bamboozled. They're tricked. They're believing that somehow if you get put out of this synagogue, this congregation, the Kingdom Hall, that's it. That is it. You're done. There's no salvation for you. You're out. Unless you come back to the building. Unless you come back. Otherwise, you're damned. Armageddon's coming. That's it. You're gone.